Movies made or scenes in Waukegan. The full-length movie that was made here was Belle of Waukegan, and it was sponsored by the Waukegan Sun newspaper. They put the bill on getting people here from Los Angeles as well as New York to interview townspeople. And the whole idea was to make a homegrown movie so people would know what it was like, particularly young people, what it was like to make a movie and what their opportunities might be. And when this movie was finished, it was shown at the Elite Movie Theater in downtown Waukegan. Other movies of notable interest that you'd be very familiar with is The Wedding. There's 5 movies that were done on the Opsted. The road that goes nowhere, and everybody wants, a lot of people want to knock it down.
Yeah.
But in reality, there was 5 movies down there. And the first one was The Wedding with Carol Burnett, 1977. The second one was The Blues Brothers in 1983 with John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd. The next one was Groundhog Day, 1973 with Bill Murray. And then 2005, Batman Began. And 2011, the latest, Contagion. So those are the 5 movies that have used the Hempstead Highway. There's one other that I'd like to mention, and that is Maython's Restaurant. It had closed, and they contracted to do a film in there called Ice Harvest. And part of it was filmed inside the restaurant, and part of the act was that the restaurant was burned during the course of the movie on purpose. A personal note on that, my wife and Carol Steiner, who some of you may know, were there for lunch that day, when, not the day of the movie, but the day the waitress came out of the kitchen crying, and she announced to my wife and Carol that the restaurant was closing at the end of the day. A sad day for Waukegan. We lost
Ray Bradbury and the influence of movies here in Waukegan. He credited his Aunt Neva for taking him to the movies in Waukegan and giving him a sense and development of a fantasy for allowing him to write and direct movies himself. It gave him that fantasy, that thought in his mind. He claimed that he saw every movie from the time he walked, every movie shown in Waukegan, from the time he walked to the time he left Waukegan at age 14 in 1934. He and his brother lived on St. James, just south of Washington Street. And if they were going to go downtown, they would walk down Washington Street and often go down Park Avenue. If they went all the way to the end, they'd go through Powell Park and up to Grand, or they would. There was a small bridge closer to Washington Street, and if the water wasn't up too high, they could walk across that bridge and go up the stairs at the west end of Madison Street. The theaters that were available at that time were many. You had the Majestic Theater at Water and County. You had the Orpheum, which later becomes the Rialto, and that's on the east side of Genesee, just north of Water Street. Later, it becomes an east-west mall. You have the Elite that he spoke of. That's on the east side of Genesee, just south of Clayton. On the northwest corner of Water and Genesee, you have the Times Theater, and at the northwest corner of Clayton and Genesee, you have the Academy. And also, we have the Genesee. The Genesee is the only remaining theater we have in Waukegan.
People of note in the entertainment field and movies that were married in Waukegan. I have 3 of them to talk to you about. The first one is Jean Harlow. She was attending Ferry Hall down in Lake Forest, and she was 16 years old. She falsified her birth date so she could get married at the age of 19. That happened in Waukegan. The second one was Dorothy Lamore, who was a singer with Herbie Kane. Herbie Kane and his orchestra. And they were around the country, and they decided to get married in Waukegan. That was in 1935. But the one I want to concentrate on is Jack Benny. And he was out in British Columbia, Spokane area, and he was playing at the vaudeville, and also the Marx Brothers were there, and he was good friends with the Marx Brothers. And the Marx Brothers invited him to a Seder dinner at his relatives, and their name was Marx as well. And they had two girls, one was Sadie, and the other was Edith. And you have to remember that Jack was now 27 years old, and Sadie was 14, and Edith was 19. There was no interest between Jack and the girls. And in fact, the next day, Sadie went to the Orpheum and sat in the front row with some of her chums. Sadie, her sister, was working at the May Company in the hosiery department. And Jack would go in there and buy hosiery for Sadie. And before long, they struck up an acquaintance. And before he left town, he entertained her at the Coconut Grove as well as the Ambassador Hotel. 9 months later in Chicago, Jack is working at the Schubert Theater, another vaudeville house, and Al Bennington and Edith are there. And Edith tells Jack that Sadie's going to get married to a guy in British Vancouver. And Jack says, get her on the phone. So he gets her on the phone, and he says to Sadie, you're too young to get married. You come to Chicago. I want to talk to you. So she does. She comes to Chicago, and within a month, she has been engaged now to Jack. And Sadie says to Jack, what do you mean? When we were on the phone, you said I was too young to get married, and then I come here and now you're going to marry me. And he says, well, you were too young to marry him, but not too young to marry me. So they got married at the Clayton Hotel, January 14th, 1927, and it was a Orthodox Jewish wedding. And Jack's father and his sister Florence were there, as well as Edith and Al Bennington. And at the end of the ceremony, Jack throws the wine glass on the ground and squashes it with his foot. And Sadie collapses. She faints. Now, you know Sadie as Mary Livingston, and Mary did not like to be on the radio. In fact, when she was on the radio, she always had the parts where she put Jack down or was argumentative with him. And the good read on Jack and his years on the radio is Sunday Night at 7. For you that are old enough, Sunday Night at 7 on the radio was Jack Benny time. Thank you.
The storytellers today are Mr. Jan Drury. I'm Dr. John Schwab, and I want to thank you all for coming.